All right, let's take you now live to Bella Coola, BC, where officials are providing an update on the Grizzly bear attack.
Just a quick update on, our injured that are in the lower mainland. That that has been a lot of improvement. But there was a lot of work that needed to be done, and again that we ask that that they respect the privacy of them until I think it's I know that that's your job as media, is to get the story, but I also at this time that they're really hurting, that they need full recovery. And I know that there's some things have been that they've been reached out to on social media, that pictures have been taken from social media, and I just respectfully ask that we not go there. These are children, and they're still hurting emotionally, physically, that if we could just be so respectful at this time, we know that you need a story, but let them tell a story when that story should be told by them, on their time. That's what I'd really want from media. They are doing, there has been improvements, but it's going to be a long road to recovery. Not only physically but mentally, and the nation's just standing behind them, and that they're in our thoughts and prayers. And again, I want to thank the community as a whole. Paramedics, conservation officers, our CMP, our staff, our guardian watchmen, our hospital, and everybody that reached out to the nation. It means so much to the people. It is quite traumatic. Nothing has changed in that regards. The stories keep coming out of, the heroic behaviors of, the events that, the aftermath, and even of the young ones being, I was told a story today about that, and, I'm going to let them tell that story, but, for a young one to do that, and to act in such a way of, how most people are running away from a fire, and this one turned around and went right back into the fire, and at that age, where, that simple heroic behavior to save her classmates. And to hear stories like that, are so inspiring, and in light of a bad, terrible situation, that these stories are coming to life, right? And again, I ask that you be respectful, and when the story needs to be told, that it will be told by them, and I just want to reiterate that it should be told by them in their time, when they're healed, when they're better. And I'd like to have you do the update on current situations with the. Yeah.
Sergeant Jeff Dyer with the Conservation Officer Service out of Williams Lake. And let's start with an update for what's occurred today and last night. We've been working all morning, all day, putting out more snare sets and trying to establish how many bears are out there. We did have Air 3 on loan from the RCMP with RCMP and conservation officers in the air today, trying to get an assessment, an overflight of the area, an assessment of the numbers of bears in the area. I haven't got the summary of that yet, but looking forward to seeing that. We have good information that there are quite a number of bears in that area. We've also established through interviews and some of the statements that we've taken that there is likely a sow and 2 cubs involved in this incident. So with the traps and the snares that we have set up, we're hoping to capture and take DNA and make some observations based on some of the interview, some of the statements that were made to us, and hopefully identify those bears. But we will be working with the wildlife veterinarians, the wildlife branch, and other experts in our field, following policy and procedures to care for those bears that we do capture and do the best we can to establish through DNA and through some of the statements that we have the correct bears. Any bears that are captured that we can rule out that were not part of the incident will be likely relocated, and that will depend on the advice of the veterinarians and the wildlife branch. These investigations and the trapping of these animals, this is a lot of work goes into these, and these can be lengthy. The bears don't necessarily cooperate, but we're doing everything we can, working with the RCMP and the nation, and want to reiterate again that we need people to stay out of our trap and snare sites, because this is, speaking from experience, this is probably the most dangerous thing that conservation officers do, especially dealing with family units with sows. So we really need people to respect the situation and stay out of the area and let us all do what we have to do in there.
Sorry, could you clarify, just have you trapped any bears yet?
We have not trapped any bears yet.
Can you talk about how you're going to be doing alongside bears for years back? What is the feeling right now in your community about that relationship with the bears?
Since we've been here?
I mean, for thousands of years we've had, relationships, positive relationships. We've lived side by side in harmony, but, like some people, there's some bad people out there. Every once in a while you get a bad bear. I think that is the case, that maybe not knowing the full circumstances of what that bear is going through, and that I'm no bear expert by any means. We've lived by them, and I know that personally, out in the woods, either mushroom picking or whatever we used to do in the woods, like we used to play in the woods as kids all the time, right? Never, ever had very instances when I was a child. And we spent, we were from daylight to dark in the bush, right? And so I do believe that there are bad bears too, right? Like bad humans, right? And I want to reiterate what the conservation officer had said is that I know that I was driving around because there was a bear spotted, and I was driving around in the village just going up and down and going down the roads, and people that are outside of their houses, I'm just letting them know, on a personal level that be very aware of your surroundings, and but just let the people do their work. Don't be out there and we know that people want to, try to help, but I don't need any other person in the woods that's not necessary, because they're going to potentially put other people at danger or themselves at danger. That we definitely don't need that. We have enough people, and with the RCMP helicopter coming in today and doing that work and doing the heat seeking, like just to count the number of bears, and like you said, that we're in bear territory, and I want to say that, and I want to reiterate that we're in bear territory, whether that be black bear, whether that be grizzly bear, but we're also there's also cougars here, there's wolves here, wolverines here, fishers here, so this is also their territory. So I just want to make sure you know that.
Question for Jeff. Sal, two cubs. Is it your sense that it was only the mother who was involved, that the cubs were there, but not involved in the attack? Is that what you're getting from witnesses, or could it be the case that all three were somehow involved? I don't think that's the case, but could you elaborate on anything you know about that?
I'm not going to elaborate on that right now.
Victims undergo treatment for their injuries. What support are being offered to those emotionally drained sons?
I couldn't hear you.
Counseling services that are being offered to those who are emotionally struggling right now.
Yeah, we have currently that there's a lot of resources that are still coming in, because we're in a remote area that also the struggles of trying to attract these people to small towns. We're fortunate with the people that we do have, but any resources like that we're definitely open to, for more services, because at a scale like this, it's you can never have enough.
I can only speak to the Conservation Officer Service. We have 8 field COs on the ground right now, and we have a 9th First Nations liaison that showed up today, and obviously working, embedding with the New Hawk and with RCMP. And we're going to have more resources coming in as needed. Like I said, these operations, especially this one, can be very complex given the difficulty into the terrain. We have a lot of equipment deployed, and we're looking to deploy more. And just the resources, so we're going to have officers coming in and out, so that we don't burn officers out as well, because the health and well-being of our officers, we want them to be safe and do the best we can, best foot forward.
Can you talk more about the terrain, especially people watching who are not from British Columbia at all, just the challenges, whether it be mountain terrain or the weather as well?
The weather is rain. It's been raining since we got here. So everything's wet, slippery. Footing is always difficult. We're working in kind of the lowlands and the river valley right now. It's just wet, it's thick, lots of Devil's Club. It's just a coastal environment.
Has a decision been made yet whether the bear or bears would be euthanized once it's confirmed that those are the ones involved in the attack?
No. We will work with the veterinarians, the wildlife branch, and the New Hawk to decide the outcome once we identify which bears we have captured.
What is the level of concern now that the bear was last seen on Thursday and today's Saturday and still hasn't been located? What is your level of
Well, we just, that's a tough question. That's part of the reason we would like people to stay out of the area too, is we don't want to disturb the bears. We're hopeful that they will come back to the same area, that they haven't been pushed away, and then we can deal with them as appropriate. I think I'll just leave it at that for now.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.